Hi everyone, today we are going to start our chemistry class, the second session of the chemistry class. So today we have discussed about the definition of chemistry, then the definition of matter, then the history of chemistry, then about Michael Faraday and his evidences. So far we have discussed those things in our chemistry lesson, and we stopped the class at the discovery of electron. Discovery of electron. Today, I think you can remember the experiment. We call that experiment as cathode ray experiment. So here is the cathode ray tube, and there are two electrodes connecting the power supply, and there is a vacuum tube. So we call these apparatus as, or this experiment as, cathode ray experiment, or this apparatus as cathode ray tube. So this is the cathode ray tube. This is cathode ray tube, and this is power supply. So we have to connect a large amount of a voltage source. So we will supply 15,000 volt, and in between voltage in between 15,000 and 20,000 volt. And here is the vacuum pump today. And there are two electrodes. This is the positive end, that means the anode, and this is the negative end, that means the cathode. So this is the apparatus we need for the cathode ray experiment. So then this experiment was conducted by J.J. Thomson. J.J. Thomson conducted this experiment, but the real scientists who conducted this under the guidance of J.J. Thomson are Julius Plucker and William Crookes. Julius Plucker and William. So the experiment was really conducted by Julius Plucker and William Crookes under the guidance of J.J. Thomson. We have to remember these names today, so you should remember these things. The practical or the experiment was conducted by J.J. Thomson. J.J. Thomson conducted the experiment, and his students really conducted or really complete the practical using this cathode ray tube. You have to remember the names: Julius Plucker, and William Crookes. William Crookes. These two scientists conducted the experiment using the cathode ray tube. These two tried to send or conduct electricity through the cathode ray tube. So these two scientists use this experiment or this apparatus to send current or the electricity from the anode towards the cathode. So after some time, when conducting this experiment, these scientists observed that there were some radiation. So there were green color glow around this anode area. So then you may going to think that cathode ray, or these rays, these were named as cathode rays. These are cathode rays. So you may going to think that these rays are green color. No, it's a wrong conclusion. These are invisible rays. These rays are invisible rays. But when we apply zinc sulfide, if we apply zinc sulfide, You have to remember this name or the formula and the color there. This is a white color precipitate. Zinc sulfide is a white color precipitate. When you apply zinc sulfide on any glass surface, it will glow in green color when a radiation contacts with the surface. If you apply zinc sulfide on any glass surface, when the radiation gets contacts with the glass surface, it will glow in green color with the radiation. So these cathode rays are invisible rays, but you can see the green color glow when we get contact these rays with a zinc sulfide surface. So these cathode rays, these rays were named as cathode rays since these were obtained or these were generated from the cathode. How can we know that? Since this green color glow was observed from the side of the anode, that means these rays were generated at the cathode and they have traveled towards the anode. That's why these rays were named as cathode rays. Then we have to understand the procedure of the experiment. The need or the requirement of such a large voltage for this experiment was, if we need to send electricity through air, we should have a large voltage source. That's why such a large voltage was supplied to the apparatus. And the use of vacuum pump, what's the use of a vacuum pump today? We have to remove air particles inside this tube. Otherwise, we won't be able to identify the rays. If there were some rays generated inside this tube, we would be unable to identify them. So that for the confirmation of the conclusion, we have to remove all the air particles inside the vacuum tube. That's why we use the vacuum pump. Then today, the use of zinc sulfide. I have told you that the color of zinc sulfide is white color. Zinc sulfide is a white color precipitate. Then, if we apply zinc sulfide to a glass surface, what's the use of zinc sulfide today? Zinc sulfide is a white color solid or a white color precipitate. Then if we apply zinc sulfide to the glass surface, it will glow in green color when radiations get contact with them. When radiations contact with the surface with zinc sulfide applied on it, then it will glow in green color. So these two scientists, Julius Plucker and William Crookes, identified these cathode rays. Then J.J. Thomson needed to identify the properties of cathode ray. So Thomson conducted some experiments to identify the properties of cathode rays. So the first conclusion of cathode rays, or the first property of cathode ray is, they have decided that, or they have concluded that cathode rays are negatively charged particles or rays. Today, how did they conclude that? How can they conclude that cathode rays are negatively charged particles? Today, since if something is attracted towards the positive end, that means that should be a negatively charged particle or a ray or a wave. That's why these rays or these waves or these particles are attracted towards the positive end. Today we can confirm that using an electric field. If we apply an electric field to this apparatus, we can confirm that cathode rays are negatively charged particles. So today we will make some note after explaining these things. I think you can remember the last week sessions also. So now we are going to apply an electric field to the apparatus. So we are going to apply an electric field. Today we can apply an electric field. I apply the positive end of the electric field to the upward side and the negative end of the electric field to the downward side. Then when cathode rays are generated from the cathode, we can observe that these are attracted towards the positive end. These are attracted towards the positive end. These cathode rays are attracted towards the positive end. So we can confirm that cathode rays can be deviated. Cathode rays can be deviated using an electric field. Cathode rays can be deviated using an electric field. Then today, if we so the first property or the first confirmation of the property of cathode rays are negatively charged particles. Cathode rays are negatively charged particles. Then today, Thomson conducted another experiment by adding a paddle wheel or inserting a paddle wheel into this cathode ray tube. What's that today? What's the meaning of a paddle wheel? Paddle wheel means a turbine. You have created these things when you are small in your previous grades. So you have taken a rigid form or a styrofoam, or then you have inserted some spoons, plastic spoons. Then if you insert an axis, then it will try to turn. It's a turbine. This is a turbine. We call this turbine as a paddle wheel. Paddle wheel. When Thomson inserted a paddle wheel into this cathode ray tube, he observed that this paddle wheel starts to rotate. What's the meaning of that today? What's the conclusion of the rotation of this paddle wheel? That means today, let's assume this. If you stay here, so you are going to run. There is a girl. So you are going towards the girl and you will hit on this girl. So you can observe that this girl also starts to rotate, starts to move. That means you have a kinetic energy. So you transfer your kinetic energy to this girl for this start of her movement. That means if something tries to rotate, the previous or the generated waves or the generated rays should have a kinetic energy or a momentum. What's the meaning of momentum today? Momentum means mass into velocity. So this is a deep term or deep topic in your physics syllabus. In near future, you will be taught this momentum part. For the understanding of this lesson, just remember momentum is the multiplication of m into v. So when this paddle wheel starts to move, that means for the supply of energy, the cathode rays generated from the cathode should have a momentum or a kinetic energy. So now we have discussed two properties. First one is cathode rays are negatively charged particles. Then cathode rays have a momentum or a kinetic energy. Then the third property of cathode ray is I am going to insert an opaque object. I am going to insert an opaque object into this cathode ray tube. That means I am going to insert a metal cross. This is an opaque metal cross. I have inserted it into this cathode ray tube. So when we insert a metal cross or an opaque object into the cathode ray tube, we can observe that a shadow of this metal cross, with sharp edges is formed by the opposite side of the cathode. So this is the shadow. This is a shadow with sharp edges. Then what's the conclusion of this observation? The conclusion is cathode rays are travel in straight lines. Cathode rays travel in straight lines. So since these cathode rays travel in straight lines, we can obtain a shadow with sharp edges. So the third property is cathode rays travel in straight lines. And there is another conclusion we can obtain from this observation. Cathode rays are emitted perpendicular to the cathode surface. Then Thomson conducted another experiment to identify another property of cathode rays. Thomson inserted a small piece of lead. This is small piece of lead piece. So when Thomson inserted a small piece of lead into the cathode ray tube, he observed that this solid piece turns to liquid. It starts to liquefy. That means if a solid converts to a liquid phase, that means these cathode rays should contain a thermal effect. So so far we have discussed some properties. First one is cathode rays are negatively charged particles. Second one is cathode rays travel in straight lines. Then cathode rays contain or possess a kinetic energy or a momentum. Then fourth one is cathode rays possess a thermal effect. Or they possess a thermal energy. Then another scientist used an inclined anode. Then he increased the voltage, amount of the voltage or size of the voltage, and he observed that when cathode rays get collided with this inclined anode, he observed some new rays. From this cathode ray tube. Then, since these are unknown rays, he called these rays as X-rays. He called these rays as X-rays. Since today, if there is an algebra or an unknown constant or unknown variable in mathematics, we denote those as X, Y, Z, or alpha, beta, gamma, like those things. So this scientist also named these rays as X-rays. So then the scientist conducted this new experiment was Frongen. So we give the honor of identifying or the discovery of X-rays to Frongen. So the father of X-rays is Frongen. You have to remember those things. So far we have discussed some properties of cathode rays. What are the properties? Cathode rays are negatively charged particles. How did we confirm that? We used an electric field. Then we could obtain that. We could observe that cathode rays are deflected towards the positive end. Then cathode rays possess a kinetic energy or a momentum. Then cathode rays travel in straight lines. Thereafter, cathode rays possess a thermal effect. After that, when cathode rays get collided with an inclined anode, new type of rays called X-rays can be generated. It was observed by Frongen. So we have to write these things. Before that, we have to make a small note on this part. There is a very important factor you should remember for your A-levels. If we use a magnetic field, we have been given a lot of questions from this factor. So if we use a magnetic field around a cathode ray tube, so I am going to form a magnetic field. This is the northern end, and this is the southern end of the magnetic field. So we can see some magnetic power or a magnetic field is generated from the northern end towards the southern end. Then we should remember the behavior of cathode rays in a magnetic field. In an electric field, what's the behavior of cathode rays? Cathode rays are deflected towards the positive end of the electric field. Cathode rays are deflected towards the positive end of the electric field. Then in a magnetic field, what's the behavior of cathode rays? For the identification of the behavior, we have to use Fleming's left-hand rule. Fleming's left-hand rule. We know that if we use FBV or FBI rule, that means this is the direction of the force, then this is the direction of the magnetic field, and this is the direction of the velocity. So magnetic field is downwards, then velocity is in this direction. Then we can see the direction of cathode rays or the magnetic force is outside of the board. The force is acted towards the outside of the board. So if we try to understand the phenomena, let's assume this is the cathode ray. If this is a cathode ray, then when this tries to move here, a force acts perpendicular to the cathode ray. When this tries to move here, a force acts perpendicular to the cathode ray. That means when this tries to move here, it will like to turn like this. It will like to turn like this. So you should make this important point. Remember, In a magnetic field, cathode rays will not deflect or will not deflect towards the northern end or to the southern end. That means magnetic field will not affect to the direction, but the cathode rays will try to move in a circular motion or a circular path perpendicular to these two poles. Did you get that, Pute? So, if we try to understand the behavior of cathode rays inside the magnetic field, so if we apply a magnetic field to the cathode rays will try to move in a circular path. Cathode rays will try to move in a circular path perpendicular to these two poles or perpendicular to the magnetic field. Okay, so you should remember that cathode rays will not be deflected by magnetic field. Cathode rays will not be deflected by magnetic field towards the poles of the magnetic field. But it will surely change its path. If cathode rays tries to move in straight lines, then after applying a magnetic field, it will turn or it will travel in a circular path perpendicular to both these poles. So, you should remember these properties. We have to make a small note on this. Write the topic today, discovery of electron. Write the topic, discovery of electron. Discovery of electron. So we will make a small note. You should write on your notebook, which you used to write the previous notes also. Write the topic quickly today, discovery of electron. For the discovery of electron, Julius Plucker and William Crookes conducted the cathode ray experiment under the guidance of J.J. Thomson. Julius Plucker was successfully able to send electricity through air. And William Crookes identified cathode rays using the green color glow observed from the anode end. Observed from the anode end. Okay, so you have to note down this experiment. You have to draw the apparatus. Before drawing the apparatus, let's go to the video animation. I think you saw it last week also, but now you can understand the properties also. So in the video there are all the properties and the behavior of cathode rays. So let's go to the video. after that we will draw the picture. I'll put a picture also, and there is a picture on the note I provided to the group, so you can draw the picture after watching the video.
Cathode rays are produced in a discharge tube. A vacuum pump is used to evacuate the discharge tube. The cathode of the tube is connected to the negative terminal of the battery, and the anode of the tube is connected to the positive terminal of the battery. It was observed that, at normal pressure, the gas did not allow the current to pass through it. However, when the pressure of the tube was reduced to 0.001 mm Hg, and a high potential difference between 10 kV and 20 kV was applied, at the end of the tube, a glow was seen on the walls of glass tube. The rays emitted by the cathode travel towards anode. The attraction of rays towards anode reveals that the rays carry negative charge. Properties of cathode rays are: 1. When any object is placed in the path of the cathode rays, these rays cast shadows. This shows that cathode rays travel in straight line. 2. When a wheel was placed in the path of cathode rays, the wheel rotates. This shows that rays consist of some particle and some kinetic energy. 3. In the presence of an electric field, the rays are deflected towards the positive plate. This confirms that cathode rays consist of negatively charged particles. 4. In the presence of a magnetic field, the rays are deflected. This shows that the cathode rays are affected by the magnetic field.
So you have seen the video today. So please draw the apparatus of the cathode ray experiment and denote all the parts. The anode, you have to denote the anode, name the parts of the cathode ray tube: anode, then cathode, then vacuum pump, voltage supply, 15,000 to 20,000 volt. Okay, you should remember these parameters also. The pressure inside the cathode ray tube was 5 mercury millimeter. 5 mercury millimeter. It was a very small pressure relative to the atmospheric pressure. So there you have to remember the parameters of the voltage and the parameters of the value of the pressure inside the cathode ray tube. So you have to denote vacuum pump, cathode, anode, and the high voltage supply. After that, today, please note down the note. Please denote zinc sulfide also. Write zinc sulfide also. Zinc sulfide is a white color precipitate. PPT means precipitate, white color precipitate, but it will give a green color glow when any radiation contacts with the surface. Okay, after drawing the apparatus using the picture provided, please note down these things. Make a topic, put a topic: properties of cathode rays. Properties of cathode rays. Properties of cathode rays. What's the reason for naming these rays as cathode rays? Since these were attracted towards the anode, they think that these rays were generated from the cathode. That's why these rays were named as cathode rays. So now we are going to write the properties of cathode rays. First one, cathode rays are negatively charged particles. Cathode rays are negatively charged particles. Cathode rays are negatively charged particles. How can we prove that today? Cathode rays are negatively charged particles. How can we prove that? After ending the sentence, write within brackets an electric field can be used to identify the charge of cathode rays. We can confirm that cathode rays are negatively charged particles. Since they are deflected towards the positive end of the electric field. So the first property is cathode rays are negatively charged particles. Then write the second one. Cathode rays possess a kinetic energy or a momentum. Cathode rays possess a kinetic energy or a momentum. Within brackets, using a paddle wheel, we can prove that. Then third one, when an opaque metal cross is placed in a cathode ray tube, a shadow with sharp edges can be obtained. Using the observation, we can prove that cathode rays travel in straight lines. Using the observation, we can prove that cathode rays travel in straight lines. Then the fourth one is, write the fourth property. Cathode rays contain a thermal effect. Then put a fourth one. The fourth one is, the fifth one, the most important and the questions which were given in all the past papers. We got a large number of questions from this part. The behavior in a magnetic field. Put a special symbol or a mark and write this fact property. In a magnetic field, cathode rays will not be deflected towards any of the poles of the magnetic field. But cathode rays travel in a circular path, but cathode rays travel in a circular path perpendicular to both poles, Okay, Pute? So these are the general properties of cathode rays. Then after that, a scientist called Millikan, R. Millikan, calculated using an experiment, he calculated the charge of cathode rays. The charge of cathode rays as minus 1.602 into 10 to the power minus 19 coulomb. Minus 1.602 into 10 to the power minus 19 coulomb. This is coulomb, I think you know the unit. So he used his famous oil drop test. To calculate the charge of cathode rays. So Robert Millikan or R. Millikan calculated the charge of cathode ray. Okay, put another mark and note down this property. A scientist called Millikan, R. Millikan, calculated the charge of cathode rays using his famous oil drop test. Today the test is not included in our syllabus, so you have to just remember the name of the experiment. We will make a short note from this part also. Then today, J.J. Thomson calculated the E over M ratio of cathode rays. What's the meaning of E over M ratio today? What's the meaning of E over M? E means the charge of cathode rays. M means mass of cathode rays. So the ratio of charge to mass is called as E over M ratio. So the ratio was calculated by J.J. Thomson. After finding this value, E over M ratio of cathode rays, Thomson applied or substituted E value. We know that E value is minus 1.602 into 10 to the power minus 19 coulomb. So using this E value, Thomson calculated the mass of cathode rays. He calculated the mass of cathode rays. He identified the mass of the cathode ray is 9.10 into 10 to the power minus 28 gram. 9.10 into 10 to the power minus 28 gram. So today, Thomson identified or calculated the E over M ratio of cathode rays. Then he substituted the value of charge to the E over M ratio. Then using these two values, Thomson calculated the mass of a cathode ray as 9.10 into 10 to the power minus 28 gram. Then today, so this is the summary of electron. So we have to note down these properties also, put another mark and write J.J. Thomson J.J. Thomson calculated the E over M ratio, and using the ratio, Thomson calculated the mass of cathode rays. Thomson calculated the mass of cathode rays by substituting the charge of cathode rays, found by Millikan. So today, this is all about cathode rays, and there is another important fact we should remember about cathode rays. We should remember that cathode rays are unique or common for every matter. Cathode rays are common for every matter. How can we prove this, Pute? This is a very important fact you should remember about cathode rays. How can we prove that cathode rays are common for every matter? We know that if we use some gases inside the cathode ray tube, we are going to insert some gases into the cathode ray tube. So this is the anode and this is the cathode. So there will be some gases inside the cathode ray. First I will insert hydrogen gas. Then we are going to calculate the E over M ratio of generated particle. We are going to calculate the E over M ratio of generated particle. Then we will get a value as K. Then after finding the value using hydrogen gas, then I will insert another gas, oxygen gas. I am going to insert oxygen gas into the cathode ray tube. Then after that, we will get another E over M value for oxygen gas. I am going to get another E over M value for oxygen gas. So then also we will get the E over M value as K. So today we can prove that since we get the same E over M value for every gas inserted or every metal inserted in the cathode ray tube, these cathode rays are common for every nature, every particles or every matter in nature. So that you should remember this. Please note down. Cathode rays are common for every matter. Cathode rays are common for every matter. Cathode rays are common for every matter. Then put since cathode rays are common for every matter, Thomson believed that a particle which was named a long time ago by Stoney named a negatively charged particle as electron. Stoney named a negatively charged particle as electron. Then Thomson believed that cathode rays are electron since they are independent of the matter inside the gas tube or the cathode ray tube. Since cathode rays are independent of the gas inside the tube, cathode rays are equal to electrons. So Thomson believed that cathode rays are the electrons. Cathode rays are the electrons. So this is the phenomena of the experiment of discovery of electron. Then today let's go to the identification of proton. Put another topic, discovery of proton. Then today we are going to the identification of proton. We are going to study the practical for the identification of proton. So put the topic, discovery of proton. Then today there was a scientist called Eugen Goldstein. This scientist, after identification of electron, this scientist used the same cathode ray tube, but with a perforated cathode. So this is the anode, and this is the perforated cathode. What's the meaning of perforating? Perforating means we get a circular cathode and we make some holes on the surface. There are some holes on the cathode surface. We call such a cathode as perforated cathode. And he used the same apparatus by adding a perforated cathode. So the same voltage, and there was a vacuum tube, the same pressure inside the tube, 5 mercury millimeter. Then after some time he observed that there was a green color glow. So this is the zinc sulfide applied surface. There was a green color glow by the end of the anode, and after some time he observed that there was a red color glow also by the side of the cathode end. So this is a red color glow. He observed a new glow by the side of the perforated cathode. Okay. So he needed to explain the phenomena. Then he conducted all the experiments which were conducted on onto the identification of properties of cathode rays. He conducted those experiments for the identification of properties of these canal rays also. We call these rays as canal rays. These are canal rays. Or we call those as anode rays, canal rays, anode rays, or positive rays. Why do we call these as canal rays or anode rays? Since these were generated from the anode and it travels towards the cathode. So using those experiments, Goldstein observed that these canal rays also got a positive charge, and they are positively charged. After that, he observed that these canal rays possess a kinetic energy or a momentum. Then these travel in straight lines. Like those properties, were obtained by the experiments conducted by Goldstein, and Rutherford also joined the experiments. Then, after identification of these canal rays, Rutherford inserted some gases inside the tube. And obtained that E over M value of these canal rays are not independent. That means E over M value of canal rays depend on the gas. Inside the tube. Okay, Puthe, did you get that? The EOM value of canal rays depend on the gas inside the tube. Then Puthe, Rutherford studied the phenomena of formation of generation of canal rays. He explained the phenomena as this. Let's assume we insert hydrogen gas into the tube. So we have inserted hydrogen gas into the tube. So when we insert hydrogen gas will absorb energy. And it will be dissociated to hydrogen atoms. Hydrogen molecules will be dissociated to hydrogen atoms. Then, when electrons, so there are electrons. When electrons pass by the hydrogen atoms, they will collide with the atoms. Electrons pass by the hydrogen atom will collide with the atoms. Then these collided electrons can remove electrons from these atoms. These collided electrons can remove electrons from the atoms. So when electrons collide with these atoms, the electrons removed, and these will form H plus gas atoms, H plus gas ions. So these positively charged ions will be attracted towards the perforated cathode, negative vein. These positively charged ions will be attracted towards the positive vein. So these ions were seen as red color glow. So these were the canal rays. These positively charged ions were the canal rays. So if we insert oxygen gas to the tube, it will be dissociated to oxygen atoms. Then oxygen atoms will be ionized to form O plus gas plus E. O plus gas plus E. So these also are canal rays. O plus gas is also canal ray. But the simplest, or if we calculated the E over M value of hydrogen gas, the charge is +1 and mass is +1. So we get EOM value as 1. So the highest EOM value will be obtained from H plus gas. The highest EOM value will be obtained from H plus gas. The canal ray with the highest EOM value is called, or was denoted as, proton. So Rutherford denoted this H plus gas as proton. So proton is an ion. the ion of H plus gas or the H gas is called or is denoted as the proton. So this is the experiment of identification of proton. So okay, let's go to a video. You can see the animation and you can understand the process more clearly.
Constructed a special tube known as a canal ray tube. These tubes usually have two chambers, which are separated by a perforated metallic disc severed as cathode of the discharge tube. The space between anode and cathode of the discharge tube contains a small number of residual gas molecules. The anode and cathode are supplied with high voltage. The electrons emitted from the cathode collide with the residual gas molecules. These collisions knock an electron out of each gaseous atom, generating positively charged ions, which are accelerated towards the cathode, and they pass through the holes in the cathode, producing a beam of positively charged particles on the back of the cathode. As the positively charged particles pass through the holes or the canals in the cathode, they are called canal rays. W. Wien succeeded in deflecting the canal rays. He made one small circular hole in the cathode and introduced two plates behind the cathode. When a strong electric field is applied between the plates, the particles are attracted towards the negative electrode, so that these are positively charged particles. Therefore, these are often called as positive.
Now you have seen the video of the formation of canal rays. So then we should remember that canal rays are positively charged ions. Canal rays are positively charged ions. So the lightest canal ray or the canal ray with the highest E over M value is denoted as proton, or it was denoted as proton by Rutherford. But the experiment was conducted by Eigen Goldstein. You should remember that. So we should remember that canal rays or these positive rays are depend on the gas inside the tube. Then we may note down a small short note about the identification of the process. So all the factors are included in the note I provided you. Just make a simple note. So you have written the topic discovery of proton, and you have to draw the apparatus. I have provided a picture after the end of the video of this animation. So pause the video and draw the picture. Draw the apparatus of the identification of canal rays. Then after that, write a note, write a note. Eigen Goldstein used cathode ray tube with a perforated cathode, and observed some new glow by the side of the cathode. Then Ernest Rutherford explained this phenomena by adding several gases into the cathode ray tube. Since these rays were traveled towards the cathode, these were named as canal rays or positive rays. These were named as canal rays or positive rays. Then Pute, write this reaction. H2 gas converts to 2H gas. Then after that H gas converts to H plus gas plus E. We call this process as ionization. I will explain these things next week. H gas converts to H plus gas plus E. This is first example, sample 1. Then write another example, example 2. O2 gas converts to O gas. Then O gas converts to O plus gas plus E. Okay, did you write these things? Then name these as positive rays. Name these as positive rays. Name these two as positive rays. Then right below there, right below, Rutherford explained that when a gas is inserted into the cathode ray tube, it will be dissociated to atoms. And atoms are ionized by the cathode rays. Within brackets electrons. Within brackets electrons. ionized ions are called positive rays or canal rays. Positive rays or canal rays. The lightest canal ray or the canal ray with the highest E/M ratio, or the canal ray with the highest E/M ratio was H plus ions. It was denoted as, or it was named as proton. It was named as proton. So today, the charge of proton was also calculated by Rutherford. He found that the charge of proton is plus 1.602 into 10 to the power minus 19 coulomb. We have seen this value today. This is the value of electron, but the charge is opposite. Since this is a plus charge, plus 1.602 into 10 to the power minus 19 coulomb, the charge of electron is minus 1.602 into 10 to the power minus 19 coulomb. Then the mass of proton was calculated by Rutherford. He found that if the mass of electron is m, then the mass of proton is 1837 times m. This is the mass of electron and this is the mass of proton. So we can see that the mass of proton is 1840 times. We have rounded this value to 40. So 1840 times larger than or greater than the mass of electron. So if we compare the mass of proton, it's very high than the mass of electron. The mass of proton is very higher than the mass of electron. So we have to remember these values. We'll make a note also. Really this is a short note. That's why I teach you quickly. Otherwise, this will be a very time-taking part. But since the online lessons, we have a limited time resources, so that I conduct the class quickly, just for remembering you these parts or recalling these parts from your memory. We have completed all these parts until the spectrum in our classrooms. So this is just a recalling of your memory. So cathode rays also contain the charge, since they will be deflected towards the negative end of the electric field and they will not be deflected in a magnetic field towards the pole, but it will be traveled in a circular path like cathode rays, and the charge is plus 1.602 into 10 to the power minus 19 coulomb. Then mass of proton is 1840 times larger than the mass of electron. So you have to remember these things today. Put a note below the apparatus and the explanation. Put a note. Charge is plus 1.602 to 10 to the power minus 19 coulomb. Denote this charge equal this one. And mass is 1840 times larger than the mass of electron. We can denote electrons as E. There is a real definition. We will discuss also that today. Mass is 1840 times larger than the mass of electron. Please make this important factor, write this important factor today. Okay, so this is the discovery of proton. And then you write another important factor, put a mark and write canal rays depend on the gas inside the tube. Canal rays depend on the gas inside the tube. Canal rays depend on the gas inside the tube. And there is a very special point which we needed to answer in MCQ questions. So you should remember this very important factor, deflection. Deflection of particles. This is not in our syllabus, but you have to remember this for the answering process for MCQ questions. There are a lot of questions from this short method. This is an important method, short method to answer MCQ questions. So deflection means, what's the meaning of deflection? Deflection means the sudden change of the path. The sudden change of the path. So this is the radius. We denote that as R1. Then we will denote the second radius as R2. What can we say? If the deflection is high, that means radius is a small value. When a radius is a small value, deflection is very high. You can see that since the radius of this circle is a low value, it deflects very quickly. But the radius of this circle is very high value, so it deflects very slow. So deflection and the radius is inversely proportional. Radius and the deflection is inversely proportional. So the radius gets increased, the deflection decreases. So the important point of this one is we can obtain an equation for the radius of the deflection of a charged particle inside a magnetic field. So we are going to calculate the deflection or the radius of this charged particle inside the magnetic field. Okay, this equation is obtained from physics. R equal mv over dq. So using this equation, we can show that R is inversely proportional to, radius is inversely proportional to 1 over E over M. dq means dE. Radius is proportional to 1 over E over M. That means when E over M increases, radius decreases. Okay, we have completed some examples from this part also. We have completed all the past papers from this part. This is just for recalling your memory. So you should, if you don't remember, please complete all the past papers from the beginning. We have completed all the past papers, and we have written some explanations also. We have written some explanations also. So you have to study all those things. So we can write that when E over M value increases, radius of the particle decreases. Radius of the particle decreases, and deflection increases. E over M value increases, radius decreases, and deflection increases. So how can we apply this for a question, Pute? How can we apply this for a question? Let's assume there are 3 particles, H plus, helium plus, and oxygen plus. So then we need to find the radius or the ascending order of the deflection. Let's assume we need to find the deflection. If need to find the deflection, deflection increases with the E over M. Deflection increases with the E over M. So we have calculated the E over M value. E means charge, M means mass. So charge is plus 1, mass is 1. We can calculate mass, or we can obtain mass from the periodic table. So charge is plus 1, mass is 4. Charge is plus 1, mass is 8. So the largest E over M value is this one. So this will have the largest deflection. Then this is higher than this one. So E over M value increases, deflection increases. So this is the order of the deflection. H plus has the highest deflection, then helium plus, then O plus. We have completed all these questions in our class today. So if you don't remember, please restudy your lessons or your notebook. We have completed all the past papers from here. So next one is discovery of neutron. Discovery of neutron. Today the experiment used for discovery of neutron is not in our syllabus, but I will show you a video and I will explain it for the knowledge only, but you don't have to remember the experiment. We need to remember only the process or the procedure which was conducted by James Chadwick. James Chadwick conducted the experiment. He used an alpha source. Okay, I will explain what are these alpha source, beta source and gamma source next week. These are radiations, alpha, beta, gamma. So he used alpha rays. You don't want to worry about these alpha rays. I will explain these things next week. So he bombarded What's the meaning of bombarding today? Bombard. What's that mean? Bombarding means hitting with high velocity. If I hit a ball with a high velocity, I call that as bombard. I bombard a ball. So he bombarded alpha rays to a beryllium sheet. This is a beryllium sheet. Beryllium sheet. So when he bombarded these alpha rays, he got some new unknown radiation. This is an unknown radiation. Then he sent these through paraffin wax. And using a Geiger calculator, Geiger-Marsden calculator. Don't worry about these words today. We will see what are these. He identified neutron. So you have to remember only the experiment. James Chadwick identified neutrons by bombarding alpha rays to a beryllium sheet. You have to just remember only these things. James Chadwick identified a neutron by bombarding the alpha rays to a beryllium sheet. So let's go to the video, and I will explain the video next week. So we have to make a short note, or we have to make a short table about the properties and the values of proton, neutron and electron. So we will make the note next week, and we will go to the radioactivity part next week. So I will teach you this experiment next week. So you just have to remember James Chadwick identified neutrons by bombarding alpha rays to a beryllium sheet. You just have to remember only that thing. So he identified that neutrons are uncharged particles. So the neutrons didn't contain any charge, and the mass of neutron is equal to proton. Mass of neutron is equal to mass of proton, but neutrons do not contain any charges. So to the next, we will go to the properties of neutrons, protons and electrons next week. So just write the discovery of neutron, and I will explain the experiment next week. Then today, so this is enough for today. This is only for today, and you have to remember the periodic table. I have told you a short method to remember the periodic table. We have studied 18th group as Heneaxer. Heneaxer, 18th group. So today we are going to remember the first group of element. First, we can remember first group as Lisi, Some, Potta, Ruby, Sipper, Penna. Lisi, Some, Potta, Ruby, Sipper, Penna. Today you have to remember the names of these elements. First group elements: lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium, cesium, francium. Lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium, cesium, francium. So today, Lisi, Some, Potta, Ruby, Sipper, Penna. You have to remember the elements of first group. So this is enough for today. You should try to recall all these from your memory and recomplete the MCQ on Pesuru books. We have completed, I think we have completed till 100 MCQ questions. We have completed 100 MCQ questions in Pesuru book. So just we complete all those MCQs and essay questions and structured essay questions provided by me in the classroom. I will put those things into the group also. So you should complete these things after studying these. So next week we will complete a short note on these particles, electron, proton and neutron. Then we will go to the radioactivity part. A new part will be started next week. I don't want to